Hi friends, welcome to Book Talk. Have you heard of Kilimanjaro? Well, it's the highest mountain in Tanzania. Now, in this backdrop, let me take you through a title, The Snows of Kilimanjaro, written by American author Ernest Hemingway. Now, Ernest Hemingway lived during 1899 to 1961. The Snows of Kilimanjaro is considered as one of Hemingway's greatest works and comparable with The Sun Also Rises and A Farewell to Arms, and was published sometime in 1936 in a magazine titled Esquire. Friends, in this story, you have shades of regret, conflict, redemption, acceptance, introspection, and finally death. So I would like to call it a tragedy. Kilimanjaro happens to be the highest mountain of Africa. It is at a height of about 4,900 meters or around 16,000 feet, and is also known as the House of Gods. Story is largely written in third person. In this story, we come across Helen and Harry. Harry is a writer dying of gangrene. Helen is accompanying him, who happens to be his wife also, in the safari in Africa, where they both are stranded in the camp because a bearing of their truck's engine has seized. So they are awaiting some kind of a help. Harry's deteriorating health condition makes him irritable. He starts mumbling about his impending death in an unemotional manner, but in a very sarcastic tone. Now this upsets Helen very much, and he even quarrels with her over trivial matters. Something like whether he should have whiskey with soda or she should read him a book. So these very small things irritate him, and he starts quarreling with Helen over that. Helen, of course, is concerned about Harry's health, but the growing frustration in Harry makes him talk to Helen in a very irksome manner. This is what starts irritating Helen also. Harry starts to ruminate about his vast and varied life's experiences. He in fact feels he was unable to climax his potential as a writer because he chose to make a living by marrying a wealthy woman. In the story, there are some italicized portions in the form of text that are scattered all over the story. Now, these reflections are about these italicized portions are about Harry's reflections. Hemingway narrates certain experiences of Harry in a stream-conscious style. Harry recalls how he contracted gangrene 2 weeks ago. They had been trying to take a picture of a water buck, which is a kind of a deer, when Harry scratched his right knee on a thorn, and that developed into gangrene. He did not apply iodine right away, on account of which the wound got infected, and because all other antiseptics ran out, he used a weak carbolic solution that paralyzed the minute blood vessels, because of which the leg developed gangrene. So this is how he got gangrene. Helen loves Harry quite dearly. She loves him as a writer, as a person, as a companion, but Harry has made it very clear that he doesn't love Helen. Harry is quite sick and about to die when he gets the reflections about his life. He feels he lost his career as a writer because he is in the company of a rich lady, and rich are normally dullards. The story doesn't have a long time span. It opens just after Harry contracts gangrene, and everything else is just in flashbacks. In the flashback, he remembers his initial days when he traveled in Europe, hunting, skiing, playing cards, hearing about bombing on a train, and many other things he does in Europe. Uh, and this is how he starts recollecting about his past. Harry is in deep agony, and in between he keeps falling asleep. So the agony is so much that he sleeps, then he wakes up, then he sleeps. It's carrying on like that. He even remembers his encounters with a prostitute in Constantinople. So that's also a flash that he gets. He recollects his grandfather's log house being burned down. Then he thinks about the personal experiences which could have turned into 20 immaculate stories. He regrets about this. And finally, the thought of death comes to him as Harry lies in the cot thinking about the happenings. He feels an overwhelming presence of death, and he associates it with a hyena that has been spotted running around the periphery of the campsite. So they are staying in a campsite, and the hyena has been spotted, so he thinks that his death is now around the corners. Harry is unable to speak. Helen, because of the pain and the situation out there, Helen, thinking that Harry has fallen asleep, has him placed inside the tent for the night. Harry dreams it is morning, that a man called Compton has come with a plane to rescue him. He is put on a plane that has space only for the pilot and himself, and the plane takes off. So friends, now we are moving towards the end of the story. Harry watches the landscape beneath him, and suddenly he sees the snow-covered top of Mount Kilimanjaro. He gets a feeling that this is where he is bound for. So in other words, he gets a feeling as if he is kind of going to heaven. Helen wakes up in the middle of the night to a strange cry of Hina, and finds Harry unresponsive on his cot. He had died. So that ends the story. Now, out of the story, I fished out some points for you. One is the tone of the story is melancholic. Initially, it starts with a regretful timbre, but in the final passage, when he is flying to Kilimanjaro, there is a sense of home and calm. Hemingway uses animals in the story as a foreshadowing device to highlight to the reader about Harry's impending death. So that's the kind of the animals are used as something which are a kind of a foreteller that things are going to bad or the death is coming. This is how he uses it. You can find this in the frozen carcass of the leopard mentioned in the beginning of the story. And then you have the vultures flying around, and one day the vultures come and sit on the tree very close to the campsite, and finally the cry and sighting of the hyena near the campsite. So all these things Hemingway denotes that as if death is likely to come, and the animals are not very auspicious. This is what the author tries to convey through this. While Harry is awaiting to die, Hemingway, through the use of flashbacks, gives readers some insight into Harry's life, which is, of course, deficient in many ways. The flashback also highlights how Harry wasted his life by not writing incidents about his own self, which could have given him tremendous mileage. Each flashback has a theme, such as travel, adventure, loss, loneliness, escapism, destruction, guilt, happiness, and misguided loyalty. So there are many aspects to these flashbacks that Hemingway has given in this story. Last and final, there is an assumption that Harry is flying to heaven when the plane comes to pick him up. So these are some assumptions that I have, after reading the story, I could make out. So I placed it in front of you. And lastly, I would give this story 9 out of 10. And friends, if you've not read this story, you must read it. It's a very unique kind of a story with a lot of flashbacks, just like a flashback movie. And if you've liked this particular program of mine, kindly share it. and also subscribe our channel. Next week we'll come out with another good story for you, another book. Till then, goodbye from Book Talk. Thank you.